Hello guys, got another Prager video here. Let's begin.
Every year, the U.S. federal government collects more than $3 trillion in taxes, and almost half of that comes from you and me, the individual income taxpayers. These are the taxes that come out of your paycheck, or maybe you pay quarterly. Either way, it's a lot of money, so it's worth learning about. So here are 5 things you didn't know about the individual income tax. Number 1. The individual income tax has been the largest source of federal government revenue since 1950, accounting for 47.3% of revenue in 2016. Number 2. While the name individual income tax implies that only individual Americans pay the tax, many small businesses are subject to it as well. A majority of small businesses are set up as pass-through entities, which means that business profits are included on the owner's individual tax sheet and is thus taxed at the individual rate, which is higher than the rates big corporations pay.
Yeah, and that's because unlike a big corporation, a big multinational corporation, a small business cannot take advantage of the numerous loopholes and deductions that are available for a large multinational corporation.
Number 3. According to 2016 data from the Tax Policy Center, 44% of Americans, or roughly 77 million people, don't pay any federal income taxes at all. Number 4.
Yes, and that's because that 44%, or the infamous Mitt Romney 47%, those people who are in that income bracket, and we're talking about people who are the working poor. We're talking about people that make either slightly above or under $30,000 a year, and thus they do not pay federal income tax because they make too little. That's why. And another interesting point that PragerU conveniently leaves out is these people pay taxes related to Social Security, and they also pay federal payroll tax also.
A combined 2.6 billion man-hours is spent every year filling out tax returns. That's an average of 17 hours per American tax filer. If time really does equal money, we're paying even more than we thought to Uncle Sam.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Most people take the standard deduction, and most people do not itemize. If you itemize your taxes, or rather while you're doing your taxes, yes, it does take longer. However, most people don't do that, and they just go right to the standard deduction. This is just another stupid point that's not even true by PragerU.
And lastly, number 5. According to the most recent data from the Tax Foundation, the top 1% of taxpayers contribute roughly 40% of all federal income taxes collected, and the bottom 50% of taxpayers were responsible for less than 3%.
You know, I expected better from PragerU, because everybody knows that somebody that pays 39.48%, and they're in the top 2% or 13%, that means they're relatively well off. These are the CEOs of the multinational corporations, and to whine and cry about poor people paying 2% of their income in taxes, it's just stupid. Somebody who, for example, somebody that's making $20 million a year can afford to pay 39.48% of their yearly income in taxes, and they'll still be well off. Versus somebody who's making, I don't know, $10,000 a year, and you're handing him a tax bill of 39.48%. You're gonna have a harder impact on that guy than the guy that's making $20 million. What they're trying to get at here is the idea of a flat tax rate. And the thing about a flat tax rate is it sounds nice in theory, but in practice, it's a disaster.
That's a lot of taxes paid by very few people. The individual income tax is what makes many of the benefits and programs provided by the federal government possible.
Yeah, that's how every society structures its tax code. The well-off, the wealthy, yeah, they pay for most of these social programs that everybody will need at some point. For example, if you take a look at the health care insurance industry, the healthy people who are paying their premiums are subsidizing the premiums of the people that are sick. It's just how it's just how shit works.
But having the rate set too high can have serious consequences on the financial situation of individuals and their families, as well as overall economic growth.
Yeah, that's a lie. The tax cuts, every time it's been implemented in this country, has failed, and it's failed spectacularly. If you go back to the 1920s, the tax cuts of back then, many would argue, led to the Great Depression. If you look at the Ronald Reagan tax cuts, he ran up a massive deficit that led to a recession. And if you look at the George Bush tax cuts, we all know how that one ended up. Tax cuts, they just don't work. It's all magic math is the term I like to use. It's all phony mathematics. They never work. Government loses money, and ultimately, the average citizen will be the one left with the bill.
Small business tax cuts is not a partisan issue, it's an American issue. Both Republicans and Democrats should be able to get behind legislation that accelerates job creation, raises wages, and strengthens communities.
And you do that by investing in the middle class and the working class of this country. That is how you do it. Never in history has wealth redistribution going towards the top ever worked. It's never worked.
It's a win-win policy.
To subscribe.
Yeah, well, it's a win for one side. If you're the guy that's winning, if you're the guy at the top, if you're the CEO of the multinational corporation, yeah, it's a win for you. But for the rest of us, it's the opposite of a win. If you guys like the video, please feel free to comment, share, like, subscribe, whatever. I'm signing off.